Well, it's me again, folks. Sheepdog Smokey, and this one is one I've been hearing a lot about. I've been reading a lot about. I've been seeing all over social media. My parents are hearing about it on social media, and it is something that, while I believe could be partially to fully true, the scope of what it is being talked about is so massive. It's kind of hard to think about. Before we get started, two things. As always, please remember to subscribe, turn on notifications. We're doing the giveaway. But also, just a question for anyone who lives kind of like I do. We live out in the country. Right now, we have a dirt driveway because we're still trying to save up the money to put down gravel or asphalt or something. We live here, so we know how to get in and out of the driveway without getting stuck. I drive a truck. My parents have a Ford Explorer. My little brother, who lives on the land next to me, has a truck. The nephew's Mustang and my dad's little Honda, they park in my cousin's driveway on the other side of my parents' house because it's paved. For nights like tonight, where it's been raining for a week and it's soggy. Crying out loud, I hadn't left my house till today in 4 days, just because I hadn't needed to. But here comes a delivery driver in a big old truck, pulls right up to my house in the dirt, and as he's backing out, he gets stuck. And my little Toyota Tacoma ain't gonna pull his big old truck out. I can't get my truck out of the driveway right now. And he comes walking up, can y'all help me get out of this? I said, I'm sorry, we can't. You're gonna have to call your company or a tow truck or something to have them get you out of here. And he's gonna ruin up my driveway in the process. I have asked every company I order from, don't park in the dirt. Don't drive in the dirt. I've called right after I placed an order. Please flag this. Use the paved driveway to the left. Use the paved driveway to the left. And none of them do it. Do y'all experience this? Do y'all have special requests on deliveries that are just ignored? I mean, I'm not going to call out a company name. I order from all sorts of places all the time. About the only one that even listens to us, because they don't listen to anything, is the Postal Service, because if it's too big for my mailbox, they leave a little card in my mailbox, hey, come get this. And I'd rather that happen than somebody tear up my driveway, because my dad and I are going to have to be out there in the rain tomorrow, shoveling dirt back into places and mushing it down so that come Monday, he can get out to go to work. I mean, at least I don't have to leave. I've got enough stuff for probably a week, being able to live alone, but it's annoying. But that's just a question for anybody who might live kind of the same situation I do. That said, let's go on and jump into the topic for tonight. We've had a lot of things going all over social media, from the QAnon posts to people supposedly quoting all this stuff, saying that this or that is going to happen, and so on and so forth. With the voluntary quarantining and social distancing, working from home, all these things, there is a new theory going around that all of this is happening to basically facilitate mass arrests. And I know there are a lot of people in the public and private sector that have done a lot of things that they should go to jail for. And because they're rich or because they have a certain family name, they don't. And I mean, we've seen it with the Epstein case, where it goes into the royal family and all over Hollywood and into other countries, that it's just so far stretched that there's really not a way to do much other than take down the ones who are running the show and scare the living crap out of those who were going to the show to say, stop it. But this theory, basically, I mean, one of the numbers I saw was 148,000 people worldwide. And a lot of them are going to be in countries that are non-extradition, countries that we have no right to operate in, and on and on and on. But the theory I heard, and again, this is a theory I've heard and seen in several places, is that this COVID-19, one of them says it was engineered and done to facilitate this. I place that in the uh, lower than slim to none chance because of how anyone planning anything would have had to know countries are not going to take this the right way. Not you can't make the 50 states work together and just follow what needs to be done. For crying out loud, look at the difference between Hawaii, Texas, and California. Hawaii just had their first case where it was communal spread, not someone who came in contact with a traveler or was related or worked with someone. No connection. They just had their first in the last week. California, a while back. I don't know what the numbers and stats are for Texas because I've pretty much quit following, unless it's a headline. But when you look at a state like Texas versus California, Texas has had Governor Abbott for many years, and we love him. And state of emergency notwithstanding, Texas Department of Public Health, county hospitals, private hospitals, and so on, they started responding fast. Okay, we worked a lot faster here than in California in some places. You look at just Los Angeles, where just not very long ago they had an outbreak of typhus. Their homeless problem is everywhere. They're not even prosecuting for, public urination and defecation, theft over certain amounts. But now Los Angeles is on pretty much involuntary stay in your home, lockdown, like we've seen in places like Italy and other places. Not happening here in Texas. I drove all over town today. Went to several stores, did everything I needed to do. One trip, got home. California, they're telling people they can't even do that, really. So I don't believe for any amount of time at all that COVID-19 was engineered to cause this. I believe it was eased on. And, if you look at the difference between the H1N1 outbreak in 2009 and COVID-19 in 2020, it was months after the first case in the U.S. before anything was really done by the government. By that time, thousands and thousands affected, many, many people dead before Obama really did anything. Just 11 days after the first case was confirmed in the U.S., we had a travel ban on China. Only U.S. citizens were being allowed back into the country, and they were going into quarantine. Now there are travel bans from multiple other countries, and it's only been about 6 weeks or 7 weeks since the travel ban was put in place against China. And as such, we're seeing much lower numbers than countries all over the world. For crying out loud, we're roughly the same number of people affected as Iran. And they have, for crying out loud, Iran is probably not even a tenth or maybe a fifth of the size of the U.S. And they have as many cases as us. They're nowhere near as populous as the U.S. But you can seize on something like this to say, we're going to need everybody to stay home as much as possible. Companies, please allow your people to remote work. We're going to close schools and have them do remote. All this stuff, honestly, I won't be surprised. I'm not putting stock in it. I don't believe that everything coming out tagged as QAnon is true. But just having watched for the last, 20, 30 years, as when I hit junior high, I was a politics and political science and history junkie. I've made A's in my history classes since I started taking history classes. Math, science, not so much. But just watching, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, W., Obama, now Trump, watching everything from that time, from, Lord, I forget what the name was, Tailhook in the 90s, and the scandal, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, 9/11, on and on and on, all the way up to today. And I can tell you, if the situation, and this is a big if, but if there are 148,000, if there are 74,000 people that need to be arrested, can you imagine that's the size of that undertaking? Think about if you live in a town of 100,000 and there are 7,000 people that need to be arrested, and they're all talking to each other. That means you have to arrest 7,000 people at once. Imagine, and let's go for not a huge town, so we're not going Chicago, New York, or LA. Let's think San Antonio, Texas. And let's go even smaller numbers. Let's say you knew of a drug and sex trafficking ring, and there were 1,000 people in the city of San Antonio or Bexar County that needed to be arrested, but you couldn't arrest them slowly because they would tip the others off and they'd run. So, of course, San Antonio PD, Bexar County Sheriff's Department, they don't have enough people to do this. You bring in DPS, you bring in Texas Rangers, you bring in maybe the National Guard to assist. Once you have enough people to do this, you have to somehow slow the city down to a point where you can send your people out and they can race through the streets and get to their destination a lot faster. Now, looking at what's going on right now, you have the UK pretty much going on martial law lockdown. You have the vast majority of the US on a voluntary lockdown, some places involuntary. You have other countries doing the same. How hard would it be for a cooperative military force, multinational, so that everyone is in their own jurisdiction, to do something like this? And the problem is what happens on the other side of that thing. Imagine 148,000 people. Let's stay with that number. 148,000 people. This is going to be leaders of industry. These will be movie executives, actors. These will be newscasters. These will be royalty. These will be government figures. You're going to throw pretty much the world off its axis, because if you do this, it will cripple governments across the planet. If you do something like this, you have to have a plan of how to come back and have an operating government at the end in every country. If we look at just some of the small countries, let's go even smaller than that. Think about Rhode Island. Tiny little Rhode Island. You could fit a lot of them inside, a lot of Rhode Islands inside of Louisiana, let alone Texas. But let's look at Rhode Island. Say in Rhode Island you had 30% of their state legislature that all of a sudden was gone. You look at a city like mine, where, say, 25% of the board that runs the city, will include the mayor in that, are all of a sudden arrested. And now you have to replace all those people. But until you do, you have to run things. Who's going to step up? Who's going to do it? How do you do it? That's why I'm critical of theories like this, because the amount of planning that has to go into this, all with the caveat of we can't do this without locking down cities, and we can't just do that. I mean, the idea that they've literally been given a scenario where, well, maybe we can do this. The odds of that happening are so astronomical, I just don't know what to think on this. There are a lot of people, and I'm not going to go partisan on this, there are a lot of people, Democrat, Republican, and other, that have gamed the system for so long, pay for play and much more, that need to answer for those things. But the logistics of doing it is just beyond me. I don't know. This is one I had to get off my chest, because just thinking about it as long as I have, it's just something I had to get off my chest and I had to talk about. Just mostly to start a conversation, see what other theories like this you've heard, what other things like this you've seen discussed, what are your thoughts on all of this. As always, remember, please be civil. We're not here to scream and yell, call each other stupid names because somebody heard a theory and asked a question about it. Let's just be logical, civil adults and have a conversation. As always, please remember to subscribe, turn on notifications. That way you're the first to know of all new content like this, which is being posted instantly, as opposed to my normal schedule. I am doing the giveaway. 500 subscribers, one person gets a book. Fahrenheit 451, Brave New World, or 1984. 1,000 subscribers, one person will get 2 of those. At 1,500, that person gets all three. Until next time, be safe, be smart, be healthy, have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.